Kính thưa quý vị,
Ladies and gentlemen,
trước hết tôi xin được cảm ơn ban tổ chức
I
của
would
diễn
like to
đàn
thank
Geneva
the
Summit
organizers
đã
of the
tạo điều
Geneva
kiện
Summit
cho tôi có mặt
for
ở đây
providing me the
để
opportunity
trình bày
to
về tình
speak
trạng nhân quyền ở Việt Nam.
about human rights in Vietnam following my 6 years in prison. I was arrested on July 30, 2011, sentenced to 13 years in prison, and exiled from Vietnam on January 12, 2017. I was locked away for choosing a path of peaceful change for my country. I started this journey in 2006. I had witnessed injustices every day and felt like I had to do something. I looked online for how people were undertaking a non-violent struggle to overcome dictatorships in other countries. And I thought, why not Vietnam? This question awoke in me, and I started connecting with different individuals and organizations. This is how I found Viet Thanh. I felt Viet Thanh had an effective solution. I was elated as this was what I was looking for, applying non-violent action to end the dictatorship and build the foundation for a sustainable democracy. Despite having many fears, I began to write blogs, sign petitions, hand out pamphlets, and participate in campaigns, handing out shirts and caps with Paracel and Spratly Islands belong to Vietnam. These were small and simple actions, but were met with harsh reprisals by the authorities. Many people who were involved were arrested. With other young leaders, I formed the John Paul II Center to Protect Life in Nghệ An, a province in central Vietnam. This center aimed to provide assistance to youth in the Vinh Diocese, and in particular, university students based in Nghệ An and Hà Tĩnh provinces. I believe shaping young people is the most essential when shaping society. So I undertook training courses abroad on non-violent civic action to improve myself and reform the country. When I returned to Saigon, I was detained at Tân Sơn Nhất Airport by the police. They took me into a dark room and handed me over to plainclothes policemen. They threatened me and took all my possessions. After 3 days of intense interrogation, the Ministry of Public Security arrested me on August 2, 2011. 9 days later, they decided to detain me for another 4 months at B34 Detention Center in Saigon. On August 17, 2011, they transported me to the B14 prison camp in Hanoi. On January 5, 2013, they took me to Nghi Kim prison camp in Nghệ An while I waited for my trial. On January 8th, the Nghệ An People's Court sentenced 14 of us over 2 days in what has become known as the Vinh trial of Vietnamese Catholic youth, where sentences were already predetermined and lawyers had no regard. I did not accept my charges simply because I did not feel that I was guilty for being involved in peaceful change. After the trial, authorities transported me to Prison Camp 5 in Lam Seong in Thanh Hoa province in northern Vietnam. In December 2014, they transported me to Xuang Mop prison in Bà Rịa, Vũng Tàu province in southern Vietnam. I journeyed from prison to prison, from southern to northern Vietnam, then back again to southern Vietnam. Essentially, I was moved around 6 detention centers and to dozens of prison cells, each with their own harsh conditions. In every prison and at every stage of this ordeal, I faced different levels of harassment. all of which were arbitrary interpretations of the law. The law was just on paper. Treatment of prisoners had been in accordance with the past practices, despite changes in law. Even Article 1 of our penal law opens opportunity for human rights abuses. Anyone who did not subserviently follow orders by prison officers was seen as hostile, as violating prison rules, and therefore was harshly disciplined. An officer's will was like God's will. Inmates were to address them as elders, while prison guards addressed inmates as children. I opposed the treatment of inmates and peacefully fought for change. And because I wanted to change for the better, I was labeled as destructive and dangerous in the prison system. I'll briefly mention a difficult period in prison. When I entered prison, I thought I would have time to draw, learn musical instruments, and even learn a foreign language. But after 3 days in prison, I was housed with a thug who was sentenced to life for murder. This person psychologically tormented me and crushed my faith. He treated me like a slave. He threatened to kill me, to make me confess and wear the prison uniform. After 3 months of suffering, I asked to be placed in another cell, but the wardens did not comply. I had to withstand another 3 months until my health rapidly declined. The harassment stopped only when my body was exhausted from the mental torment, bodily suffering, and induced migraines. Another incident at Prison Camp 5 was when I was disciplined and placed in solitary confinement with my feet bound. I had no water and was given only shabby clothes in the cold weather. Solitary confinement was the reprisal for a simple act that I had undertaken. I had written a letter to the Vin Diocese bishop about the inhumane treatment of prison inmates. The guard said I had violated prison rules and shackled me for 10 days in a reeking cell with no water to brush my teeth or wash my face. Unable to eat rice, I underwent a hunger strike, and the prison guard responded by not giving me water to drink for 3 days. I had no clothes to wear because I refused to wear the prison uniform because I felt my sentence was unjust. When I did a hunger strike, I was accused of breaking the rules. Not signing documentation about my hunger strike or any papers was seen as resisting orders. I conducted hunger strikes totaling more than 100 days and fasted with just 1 meal a day, continuously for 300 days. After seeing that I was willing to die, they stopped forcing me to confess. I was then sent to a prison in southern Vietnam, which meant my family had to travel more than 1,500 kilometers to visit me, a way of creating hardships for my family. My family undertook a total of 45 trips of hundreds and thousands of kilometers. Putting time and money in the hope of seeing me. However, they never saw me. Even worse, prison officials lied to my family and told them I did not want to see them. Before I was exiled to France, authorities did not permit me to see my family. This was the most callous and cruel form of a human rights violation. And other prisoners? When other prisoners violated prison rules, they were educated through violence. They had their feet bound for 10 days, followed by solitary confinement for 3 to 12 months. Most would potentially suffer paralysis after 3 months. This was what inmates were most afraid of. I witnessed dozens of people getting beaten after they were bound. My right to freedom of religion was also trampled on while in prison. Wardens used Article 11 of the prison rules to ban any scriptures related to religion. Other prisoners of conscience conducted ongoing hunger strikes just to receive a Bible. I wrote a letter of complaint and conducted a hunger strike, and was even prevented from receiving a Bible given to me by the EU delegation. Having a religion as a prisoner in Vietnam became dangerous and impacted our lives in jail. Ladies and gentlemen, when choosing this road to fight for justice and freedom for my country, we are always at risk of being arrested and detained. In prison, our dignity is trampled on. We are discriminated and our lives are threatened. We are imprisoned and silenced. If this is what I went through, then many others are suffering the same experience, including Hồ Đức Hòa, Nguyễn Văn Đài, Trần Huỳnh Di Thức, Đinh Nguyên Khá, Nguyễn Đặng Minh Mẫn, Trần Thị Thúy, or those who were recently arrested, including Nguyễn Văn Hoài, Nguyễn Văn Hóa, Trần Thị Nga. They need our help and our voice. Ladies and gentlemen, without the support of the international community, I would still be in prison. My presence here today reflects the strength of the international community. I hope that you will continue to speak up and pressure the Vietnamese government to stop arresting democracy and human rights activists, and to release all prisoners of conscience. Before I conclude, I feel I have a responsibility to give an update on a pressing issue in Vietnam. On February 14, 2017, victims of the Formosa environmental disaster in Nghệ An province rallied at Kỳ An Court in Hà Tĩnh province to demand compensation. However, their journey resulted in brutal attacks. Vietnamese authorities barred people from traveling. Led by Reverend Nguyen Đình Thục, more than 1,000 people were determined to march 170 kilometers. Thank you very much for listening.